class, we discussed about return on investment, more specifically return on equity. So we'll write return on the top, numerator, equity, we'll write in the bottom, denominator. So here return in the sense, we can say net income after preference dividend, or profit after tax after preference dividend, if any, divided by the equity. So this concept will help us to understand the efficiency ratios or turnover ratios, or we can say it activity ratios. Efficiency ratios, turnover ratios, or activity ratios. Because dew point analysis, if we check it out with regard to the return on equity, that is net income or profit after tax by equity. So it is a combination of majorly two things. One is return on asset, another is equity multiplier. Return on asset is nothing but return by total assets. And equity multiplier is nothing but total assets by equity, total equity. So here nothing but return is net income. Further, the return on asset can be subdivided into two categories. One is profitability margin, another is asset to turnover ratio. And the third thing is equity margin. That's why we can say return on equity is combination of three things. This is broad categorization, two things. This is the deeper categorization. So profit margin, net income by net sales. Asset to turnover ratio is nothing but net sales by total assets. Total assets by total equity. So this is what the dew point analysis concept. So one important thing that I would like to tell you, when we are focusing on income statement item and balance sheet item or position statement item, so there is one concern. So you cannot take income statement in combination with the position statement without some adjustment. So the adjustments we will talk about here is that, so these two are the income statement item. There is no problem at all. But when we talk about the asset to turnover ratio, this is where income statement item we are taking and the balance sheet item we are taking. So when you are taking income statement and balance sheet, so income statement represents 12 months period. Changes in 12 months period. That means from first, let's say, if calendar year is applied as a financial year, 1st January to 31st December, during this entire period, what changes happened, all those will be considered. Where at position statement ISON, we'll talk about balance sheet ISON or IZ. We normally will use. But whereas income statement for the year ending, we'll use. So that means ISON today, what is the total assets? What are the total assets? What are the total liabilities? What are the total equities only will be mentioned. It is not the change is happening. The total 1 year picture. It doesn't show the total 1 year picture. It shows only on that particular day, the company is having how many assets, how many liabilities, and how much of equity funds are there. So to avoid this situation, analyst says that it is better to take average total assets instead of total assets, and average total assets and average total equity. So remember, whenever we are taking balance sheet item, if data is available, so in that case, if you are calculating 2024 calendar year ratios, so then 2023 information, closing information, and 2024 closing information both need to take. That means in 2023, what is the status of asset? In 2024, what is the status of asset? Both will be taken and divided by 2. That's why the average assets or average equity or average liability or average shareholders fund, nothing but beginning assets plus ending assets divided by 2. Beginning equity plus ending equity divided by 2 will be taken. That means two data points we are considering, and we'll take the average. This is the first clarification adjustment when we are using. That's why when we discussed in the previous session, I have not focused intentionally the average, because concept understanding is must. So later on we can adjust accordingly with the reasons. So this is what the thing about it. And one more thing, sometimes what will happen, examiner might be giving 1 quarter information. So the last quarter details are like this: total assets are this much, total equity is this much. So it is also advisable that other 3 quarters data need to be considered as same the quarter fourth. So that's why if quarter information is given, you multiply with 4 so that it can be converted 12 months data, because analysts takes the yearly picture, not the quarter picture. But if question says you calculate only quarterly details, so in that case there is no need to multiply. If the question is silent, whether we need to calculate the ratio for that particular quarter, so when it is silent, if the data is given either half yearly or quarterly or 1 month, so if 1 month given, multiply with 12. If half yearly given, multiply with 2. If quarter given, then multiply 4. So then you will get the yearly picture. And whenever you are combining the income statement as well as the position statement ratios using both these two, or only the total balance sheet items if we are considering, so better we'll take the complete 1 year picture. And that's 1 year is what the closing of balance of last year is nothing but opening balance of the current year. So beginning balance plus closing balance divided by 2. Sometimes students will feel both are closing balance are given, and how to calculate the average. So last year closing balance will become this year current year opening balance. So you should not get confused on that particular point. These are the 2 points apart from the discussion what we had. So finally, the due point analysis is the return on equity is a combination of 3 things overall. One is profit margin ratio, another is asset turnover ratio, another is equity multiplier on financial leverage. So this information, it means here net income by net sales will multiply with the asset turnover ratio when we're calculating net sales by average total assets instead of total assets. Now we have added average total assets, then multiply with the equity multiplier, the financial leverage, that is average total assets by average total equity. So when you cancel these things, so finally we are going to get, that is net income by average total equity. It's nothing but a return on equity or return on investment, here in the sense return on equity. So what is this concept is that return by investment. So all other ratios where you calculate the turnover ratios, here the turnover, if we talk about here once again, we divide into non-current assets and the current assets as well as the current liability, nothing but net current asset concept. So non-current assets is nothing but fixed asset turnover ratio. So in that case, total sales by average fixed assets will be taken here as a formula. And when we talk about the current assets, so it's divided majorly three parts. One is inventory turnover ratio, right? And accounts receivable turnover ratio, and current liability is accounts payable turnover ratio. So the formula is here when you talk about inventory turnover ratio. So how to by heart these formulas? Simple logic is what you think. What is your investment? That is in the denominator. Think as an investment. What is your investment, and what is your return? So when average fixed assets is your denominator, so return for the average fixed assets is the turnover. The return is what? Here, turnover. This is the numerator. Total sales. So by using these assets efficiently, we generated the total sales. So in that context, you need to understand this particular concept. You should not assume that directly the return is profit, but where is profit? So it's not like that. So the point is what? Our assets is investment. So immediate efficient utilization of that asset is generating sales, and that is what, in that context, we have to take the return, not the directly profit, because total sales, then cost, then profit. So understand करने के लिए, आपको by heart करने के लिए formula कैसा जो है ना आया है. So simple logic is what is our investment, and what is our return. So in the context of non-current asset, so average fixed asset is our investment, and by using these assets, how much of sales we generated, because the assets will convert into the sales. So therefore, this is the return. And what is the meaning of this ratio? They will be discussed later. I'll discuss. First, you try to understand the big picture. Big picture is return by investment. So for the inventory turnover ratio, what is return and what is investment? Investment is average inventory. So this average inventory converted into COGS. When it goes to the sales, immediately to the cost. Because inventory doesn't have the profit component in it, we cannot take the as it is sales here. So inventory doesn't have profit component. When it has the profit component, so then it is accounts receivable. Then we will take the turnover as sales, credit sales. But inventory doesn't have, it is always valued at cost or market value, whichever is lower. So therefore, here we will take the COGS, average inventory and COGS. See, the definition, याद करने की जरूरत नहीं है, definition, derivation important है, वही करता है दाया करने, the logic behind the formula, that is very important. The conceptual understanding of particular topic is very important. ऐसा नहीं है कि भाई अब हम याद कर ले रहे हैं, घटी मार रहे हैं, जाने के बाद इन्वेंट्री ऊपर लिख रहे हैं, कॉक्स नीचे लिख रहे हैं, कंफ्यूजन भाई यार, हमारा इन्वेस्टमेंट इन्वेंट्री है और हमारा जो है ना रिटर्न जो है ना, ये इन्वेंट्री कन्वर्ट होना चाहिए कॉक्स, एंड दैट इज व्हाट आवर इमीडिएट रिटर्न. दैट इन दैट वे यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड. ये बुक्स में नहीं मिलेगा आपको इसको, ये तमाम चीजें बोलेंगे कि ये सब क्या है, but this is what the sense that does it make it sense when you think in that way, and that's how the formulas are developed. So COGS by average inventory. So then accounts receivable turnover ratio. हमारा इन्वेस्टमेंट क्या है? अकाउंट्स रिसीवेबल हमारा इन्वेस्टमेंट है. तो अकाउंट्स रिसीवेबल जो है हमारा क्या जनरेट करना चाहिए? क्रेडिट सेल्स जनरेट करना चाहिए, नेट क्रेडिट सेल्स और क्रेडिट सेल्स. So in this way, so because accounts receivable includes the profit margin, so you have to take the credit sales. That's the important thing. And then how can you think this payables is investment and return? So it is not like that. Current asset minus current liability is net current asset. That's what we are thinking. So these plus 2 we will do, and this we will minus, and finally we are going to get here the answer that is about net current asset. सो सो हियर अकाउंट्स पेबल आपका इन्वेस्टमेंट है, ओके। सो इसका रिटर्न जो है आपका वो है नेट क्रेडिट परचेजेस। सो इसको हम बोलते हैं ऑपरेटिंग साइकिल। दिस इज ऑपरेटिंग साइकिल। ऑपरेटिंग साइकिल में से हम डेज इन परचेजेस निकाल देंगे, इसको कहते हैं हम डेज इन इन्वेंट्री। डेज इन इन्वेंट्री, सॉरी, डेज इन इन्वेंट्री। ये डेज इन्वेंट्री कैलकुलेट किया जाता है ना इससे। डेज इन इन्वेंट्री यानी कितना, कितने डेज हमारी इन्वेंट्री जो है ना ब्लॉक हो गया फंड, प्लस डेज इन अकाउंट्स रिसीवेबल, डेज इन सेल्स, डेज इन सेल्स, ओके। देन दिस इज डेज इन परचेजेस। ये दोनों को हम मिलाते हैं तो ऑपरेटिंग साइकिल कहता है। ऑपरेटिंग साइकिल में से डेज इन परचेजेस को हम अगर निकाल देते हैं तो वी आर गोइंग टू गेट द कैश साइकिल। कैश साइकिल इसको बाद में हम डिस्कस करेंगे, बट आई हैव इंट्रोड्यूस्ड हियर। सो द कॉन्सेप्ट क्या होता क्या है, हमारा कैश से इन्वेंट्री, फिर इन्वेंट्री कन्वर्ट होता है अकाउंट्स रिसीवेबल, यहां से यहाँ जो पीरियड होता है उसको हम बोलते हैं ऑपरेटिंग साइकिल। फिर हम पेमेंट करते हैं क्रेडिटर्स को ऑन पेएबल्स, अकाउंट्स पेएबल्स। सो विल माइनस द अकाउंट्स पेएबल्स। सो फ्रॉम ऑपरेटिंग साइकिल इफ अकाउंट्स पेएबल डेज, पेमेंट डेज जो हमारा है, कितना अमाउंट, कितना हम क्रेडिटर्स को कितने दिन में पेमेंट करते हैं, सो देन दिस इज फाइनली क्या होगा, ये कैश, ये इन्वेंट्री, अकाउंट्स रिसीवेबल, फिर ये पेमेंट करेंगे हम, तो फाइनली आपको क्या होगा, ये 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 इन्वेंट्री से अकाउंट्स रिसीवेबल, फिर अकाउंट्स रिसीवेबल से कैश, फिर ये पेमेंट, देन नेट कैश साइकिल। सो दिस इज द कैश साइकिल। इन दिस वे वी विल बी डिस्कसिंग। एनीहाउ ये बाद में डिस्कस करेंगे, हम फार्मूलाज पे फोकस करें। सो दिस इज नथिंग बट क्रेडिट परचेजेस बाय अकाउंट्स पेएबल, नेट करंट वही कैश साइकिल का आएगा यहाँ पर। दिस इज व्हाट द कॉन्सेप्ट, ओवरऑल कॉन्सेप्ट। सो अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट, ये फिक्स्ड एसेट्स है, ये करंट एसेट्स है, माइनस दिस, सो फाइनली आपका टोटल एसेट्स टर्नओवर रेशियो। टोटल एसेट्स टर्नओवर रेशियो फार्मूला क्या है, ये जो हमने डिस्कस करें, नेट सेल्स एवरेज टोटल एसेट्स। सो इन दिस वे दिस इज व्हाट द कॉन्सेप्ट। सो देयरफॉर द आवर टॉपिक इज व्हाट, inventory turnover ratio, sorry, not inventory turnover ratio, turnover ratios, turnover ratios or efficiency ratios or another name क्या है भाई इसका, turnover ratios, efficiency ratios, activity ratios इसको कहते हैं। So what is the definition of activity ratios? Activity ratios measure how quickly the two major non-cash assets, that is accounts receivable plus inventory, are converted into cash, यही है आपका एक्टिविटी रेशियो। जितना जल्दी आप यानी इफ इन्वेंट्री इज देयर, सो इट इज इनटू सेल्स अगेन अकाउंट्स रिसीवेबल कहलाता है, इनटू कैश, यही है आपका ऑपरेटिंग साइकिल, राइट। एंड देन पेमेंट करते हैं हम अकाउंट्स पेएबल का, तो उसको माइनस करें ऑपरेटिंग साइकिल में पेमेंट, तो कैश साइकिल। सो दिस इज नेट कैश साइकिल, ऑपरेटिंग नेट कैश साइकिल।